Right now, as I make this video, there's a woman in Georgia who is being kept alive on life support because when she was legally declared brain dead, she was pregnant. And so there were no other options. Georgia's abortion law essentially created this scenario where she needed to stay alive to carry the baby to term. This story is absolutely horrific, and I feel for the family. And I want to talk about it because the ins and outs of this story and how we got here are truly just unbelievable and sickening. Now, before I talk about this, let me zoom out a second, okay? We're under an administration right now, a Trump administration that has said over and over and over again that they're here to protect women, even after Trump has obviously taken credit for overturning Roe v. Wade and, taken away women's fundamental constitutional right to an abortion. Still, on the campaign trail, we heard Trump say things like this. Take a listen to this.
And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. I pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to protect them from migrants coming in. I'm going to protect them from foreign countries that want to hit us with missiles and lots of other things. Remember, for 4 years we had no war other than I defeated ISIS, but
So that's enough from Donald Trump. First of all, before I get into the actual substance of what he just said, he looks effing ridiculous, okay? I don't want to listen to this guy anymore. He looks absurd. But number two, what a gross, just disgusting thing to say. Also, again, on the standpoint that in his first term, he bragged about the fact that he overturned Roe v. Wade, took away the right to an abortion for millions of women. And in overturning Roe v. Wade, what have we seen? We've seen nothing but more death and more trauma. Right? This is an article from a few months ago from NBC News analyzing CDC data, a dramatic rise in pregnant women dying in Texas after their abortion ban. An analysis finds the rate of maternal death in Texas increased 56% from 2019 to 2022, compared with just 11% nationwide during the same period. So what we're seeing in these red states like Texas is the maternal mortality rate, meaning women who die while pregnant, while giving birth, or shortly after birth, has exploded, especially in comparison to blue states. The state with the lowest maternal mortality rate is California, right? And a lot of the reason we're seeing this is because after Roe v. Wade was overturned, doctors felt a lot of pressure. They could, risk felonies for doing their job. We saw, doctors in Louisiana having to do time drills, running as fast as they could from one side of the hospital to the other because the state of Louisiana reclassified two very common abortion drugs as controlled dangerous substances, and so they couldn't be at the bedside anymore. They had to be across hospital. But doctors use those pills all the time to make sure that they can stop the bleeding for a woman after she's, given birth, to make sure that to save lives in other scenarios, a lot of other scenarios, most scenarios that are not abortion related. And so what we've seen is like a lot of these doctors get up and flee these red states. I'm from the state of Georgia, which is partly why this story that I'm going to loop back to, it's just disgusting to witness. I'm from Georgia. Half our counties don't have OBGYNs, half. A lot of women are driving well over an hour to see a primary care doctor. And the reason that is because a lot of doctors, again, in these red states have gotten up and they've left the state. They've fled because they're not going to do their job under these conditions. And a lot of times they're forced to do something because they're being told by lawyers to do it, even though their medical training tells them to do something different, which I can only imagine is horrific, right? We saw another story in Georgia before the election of a woman who showed up, had an infection because of she traveled to another state to take abortion pills, to have an abortion because she couldn't do it in Georgia. She came back to Georgia. She had an infection. And when she showed up to a Georgia hospital, it would have taken a 15-minute procedure, a DNC, to help her, but they waited because the lawyers essentially said, we don't know if you can operate on this woman until it's, last minute, because this may be against Georgia's very confusing, very vague abortion law, which again, we're going to get into right now. So like I said, in Georgia, there is a mother who is being forced to keep her brain dead pregnant daughter alive under this abortion bill. A pregnant woman in Georgia who is declared brain dead is being kept alive by ventilators because of the state's the state's law banning abortion. The woman's mother says, telling local news that the family has no say in the matter. So Adriana Smith is this woman's name, and she began getting headaches. She was about 9 weeks into her pregnancy, 8 or 9 weeks. She started getting headaches, and she showed up to the ER in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm from, and she got medication, and she was discharged. That night, she went to bed, and as the article continues, her boyfriend woke up, and he looked over, and she was still sleeping, but it appeared that she was gasping in her sleep. So he got up, he called 911, they rushed her back to the hospital. This woman, by the way, is 30 years old. She has a son, and she's a registered nurse. And so by the time she gets to the other hospital, to Emory Hospital, which is an incredibly, incredibly good hospital, they started doing CT scans. They did a CT scan, and it showed multiple blood clots in her brain. And Newkirk, speaking here, who's Adriana's mother, told the news station that her daughter was declared brain dead and had been breathing through machines for more than 90 days. Quote, "It's torture for me," she said. "I see my daughter breathing, but she's not there." So they declared her brain dead when she showed up essentially to the hospital. She had they did a CT scan. She had blood clots in her brain. Unfortunately, there was nothing that they could do. It was incredibly tragic. But the doctors told her mother and her boyfriend, our only option here is to keep Adriana essentially alive on life support until she can carry this baby to term. Because Georgia's abortion law, as it says here, Governor Brian Kemp signed the state's near total abortion ban known as the Life Act in 2019, but it didn't take effect until late 2022, or until 2022, after it faced a legal challenge and the U.S. Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade. Under the law, abortions are illegal after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Exceptions include some situations to protect the woman's life and health when fetal anomalies are detected, and in cases of rape and incest that have been documented with the police. Newkirk told the station that her daughter is currently 21 weeks pregnant. It should have, quote, "It should have been left up to the family." Newkirk said, telling the station that doctors informed the family they are legally not allowed to consider any other options. I'm not saying that we would have chose to terminate her pregnancy, but what I'm saying is we should have had a choice. A spokesperson for Emory Healthcare says, quote, "It uses consensus from clinical experts, medical literature, and legal guidance to support our providers as they make individualized treatment recommendations in compliance with Georgia's abortion laws and all other applicable laws." So essentially, because Georgia's abortion law provides an exception for women who are at risk, technically, since Adriana, is brain dead, she's not a risk to herself. And so it's very clear here that Emory doctors were told, legally, this is a gray area. We could be in trouble here. The doctors could face felonies for doing their job. The hospital could be held criminally liable, civilly liable. Donald Trump, as we've seen this administration do so often, could come after them just for not agreeing with him politically or doing something that he doesn't view as politically advantageous. And so the doctors were told there's nothing you can do. You're going to keep her on life support. And again, this whole thing started in 9 weeks. They're hoping that Adriana can carry the baby to term at 32 weeks. And so not only do they not have a choice, which, like the family said, it's incredibly traumatizing because maybe they would have done it like this anyways, but they at least wanted the choice. They had no choice. And now the hospital bills are mounting up because I remind you, she's on life support every single day at one of the best hospitals in the nation. And this family has no other option but to pay the bills to keep her alive. And now what we're learning, according to NBC, after all this, after the hospital bills are piling, is that the child who is currently the pregnancy that is currently progressing, the child has fluid around his brain, and the doctors are saying they don't know how much fluid and they don't know how this is going to affect his life. So he might not be able to walk. He might be blind. He might not have, there might be a lot of, they don't even know if the, child's going to survive, right? And so on top of that, just the sheer amount of trauma that this family has endured because of this it's mind-boggling. Truly, truly, truly mind-boggling. And it's one of the most, I think, disgusting acts of the Trump administration as we hear all of this news that, families every single day in states like Georgia, women every single day have less access to healthcare, are dying when they're pregnant and they want to be pregnant because of lack of access to healthcare, because doctors are leaving these states. Families are being traumatized by stories like this because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade and these states have complete and total abortion bans. It's disgusting. It's gross. And I hope people say Adriana's name, Adriana Smith. I'll be thinking about her family. If I, get any news that there's any GoFundMe links or anything to help with the hospital bills, I will add them to the description of this video when I find them. I appreciate you watching this video so much. It would mean a lot if you went down below and subscribed and hit like, maybe share it with a friend or family member. I appreciate you watching. I'll leave links in the description also for any of my other social media channels. I also post on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the rest. I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video.